The tragic fate of Art Schlichter began not in a prison cell or on a street corner, but in a moment of clarity that never came. In February 2024, an Ohio Highway Patrol officer pulled up to a disabled vehicle on a street in North Linden, a struggling neighborhood in Columbus. Standing beside that broken down car was a man most people had forgotten. He was frail. He was homeless. He was living out of that vehicle with crack pipes on the floorboard and small white rocks in his pocket that he admitted were crack cocaine. This was Art Schlichter. Once he was a god in Columbus. Once he was the future of football. Once he had everything, now he had nothing. If you're feeling this story so far, drop your hype to support the video. It helps more people hear stories like this one. Stories about what addiction really does. Stories about how far a person can fall when the disease takes over. To understand this fall, go back to Ohio State University in 1978, when a teenager from Miami Trace High School arrived to transform the Buckeye program. Art Schlichter was not just a recruit, he was a phenomenon. Coach Woody Hayes was aging, and Schlichter came to modernize the offense. He started immediately as a freshman. For 4 years, he was the starting quarterback, finishing in the top 6 of Heisman Trophy voting 3 times. In 1979, he led an undefeated regular season ending in a Rose Bowl appearance. Columbus fell in love with him. They called him the Golden Boy. He was untouchable. But there was a secret growing in the shadows. As a high school student, Schlichter discovered Scioto Downs, a harness racing track south of Columbus. What started as a social activity with friends pooling small amounts became something much darker. It became a compulsion that controlled his mind and his choices. By his junior year at Ohio State, he was no longer betting small amounts on horses. He was wagering thousands of dollars on college football games and professional sports. He had access to credit lines that no college student should have. Bookmakers extended him credit because of his fame. He was deeply addicted, and no one stopped him. No one intervened. Campus police had suspicions. They saw him at the racetracks, but the athletic department decided there was not enough evidence to alert the NCAA. They did not want to know. His talent was too valuable, so they looked away. They taught young Schlichter the most dangerous lesson a talented person can learn. The rules did not apply to him. This was the first enablement in a lifetime of enablements. In 1982, the Baltimore Colts drafted Schlichter 4th overall. They gave him a signing bonus of $350,000. In 1982, money, that was a fortune. Today, that would be over $1 million. For a pathological gambler, this influx of cash was not a blessing. It was a disaster. Schlichter did not invest the money. He did not build a life with it. He gambled it all away. Every single dollar. Gone before the middle of his rookie season. He was already broke, already desperate, and his NFL career had barely started. Then came the 1982 strike. The players stopped playing, and the structures that held Schlichter together fell apart. No practice. No games, no structure, just idle time and unlimited access to credit. During that strike, Schlichter lost $20,000 in the first week alone on college football games. The losses kept growing. He was chasing, trying desperately to win back what he had lost by betting even more. By the time the strike ended, he owed at least $700,000 to organized crime figures. $700,000. To men who did not care about his Heisman votes or his Rose Bowl rings. Men who cared only about getting paid. By spring of 1983, the bookmakers were threatening him. They were demanding payment. They were hinting at violence. They were suggesting that maybe he could help them by throwing NFL games. Schlichter was terrified. He did the only thing that might save his life. He went to the FBI. He agreed to wear a wire. He recorded conversations with the bookmakers. He cooperated with federal agents, and his testimony led to their arrests and convictions. He saved himself from physical harm, but he destroyed his reputation in the locker room. In the culture of professional sports, you do not cooperate with the government against anyone, even illegal bookmakers. He was branded a snitch. He was untrusted. He was alone. In May 1983, NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle suspended Schlichter. He became the first NFL player suspended for gambling since 1963, since Paul Hornung and Alex Karras. The suspension was supposed to be indefinite. It lasted 13 months. When he came back, he said he was clean. He said he was fixed. He lied. He continued gambling the entire time, just betting on sports other than football, so technically he was following the rules. His play on the field was terrible. He appeared in only 13 NFL games. He never won a single game as a starter. In 1985, the Colts released him. His NFL career was over before it really started. He tried the Canadian Football League in 1988 with Ottawa, broke his ribs, and was released. Running out of places to play, he found the Arena Football League. In 1990, playing for the Detroit Drive, he was named MVP. He led his team to an Arena Bowl victory. For a moment, Art Schlichter seemed like he might get his redemption. But in 1992, he was caught betting on Arena Football League games. The league did not want a scandal, so they offered him a choice. Retire quietly, they said, or we will ban you forever. He retired. He announced it publicly as a choice to pursue a radio career and cure his addiction. It was all a lie. He retired because he had no other choice. He retired because he could not help himself. He retired because the disease was winning. Now he was no longer an athlete. His income from football was gone. But his addiction needed feeding. He stole from people closest to him. He pawned his wife Mitzi's wedding ring. He stole from her family. His marriage fell apart. He estimated he stole at least $1.5 million during the 1990s to pay bookmakers. He wrote bad checks and ran confidence games across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. In the middle 1990s, Schlichter's luck finally ran out. He was arrested, convicted, and sent to the Indiana Department of Corrections. He would spend the next 11 years in prison from 1995 to 2006. But even behind bars, even locked away from society, the addiction did not stop. Guards caught him gambling inside the prison walls using other inmates' commissary accounts, placing bets on sports through third-party intermediaries. In 2004, the guards discovered his operation. He was placed in solitary confinement for 120 days. He described it as the darkest period of his entire life. He said you really do not have anywhere to go but death. He said it was very depressing and very isolated, and he would not wish that experience on anybody. But even solitary confinement could not cure the addiction. In 2005, from his cell, he placed a $20 bet on a basketball game. He later claimed it was his rock bottom. But it was not. There was so much further to fall. While Art sat in prison, his family was collapsing under the unbearable weight of his choices. His father, John Max Schlichter, had been his first enabler, his greatest defender, the one person in the world who always believed in him and stood by him. In 2002, while Art was locked away in an Indiana cell, Max died by suicide. His body was found in the family swimming pool. Art later said this weighed very heavily on him, that he carried the guilt and the grief. But the grief did not cure him. It did not stop his addiction. It likely only deepened the depression and self-loathing that drove his addiction cycles forward relentlessly. When Schlichter was released in 2006, he launched a calculated campaign of image rehabilitation. He published a memoir called Busted. He started a nonprofit organization supposedly dedicated to gambling awareness and recovery. He went on radio shows across Ohio, he spoke in churches, he preached recovery to anyone who would listen. He told people he was fixed. He told people he had learned his lesson. It was all another lie, a calculated deception. Authorities later determined that he resumed gambling almost immediately after his release, even before he left the prison gates. To feed this relapse, he engineered his most destructive scheme yet. It was a ticket scam. Schlichter told people he had insider access to prime tickets for Ohio State football games and Super Bowls. He said he had special connections at the university. He said the tickets were absolutely guaranteed to be authentic. He solicited investments from people and promised them high returns or exclusive VIP access. But there were no tickets. There were never any tickets. The money went directly to pay bookmakers and service earlier investors in a classic Ponzi scheme structure. It was a Ponzi scheme, and it was massive. The fraud totaled over $5.4 million. Dozens and dozens of people lost everything. But the heart of this tragedy is Anita Barney. She was a wealthy widow, wife of a former Wendy's CEO, respected in her community. In 1981, Schlichter had visited her son Alan in the hospital after a plane crash coma. When Alan woke up, Anita believed Art had helped save him. She loved him. She trusted him. In 2009, Schlichter came back with a story. Dangerous men were threatening him. He needed help. Anita gave him money. When it was gone, he did not leave. He screamed at her. He bullied her. He forced her to call friends and solicit money. He made her a criminal. Anita lost her entire fortune. Her homes were foreclosed. She pleaded guilty to felony theft. She was left on Social Security, her reputation destroyed. In 2011, the scheme collapsed. Schlichter was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to nearly 11 years in federal prison. The judge who sentenced him, U.S. District Judge Michael Watson, called him a predator. The judge said society's patience was exhausted. Schlichter had stolen from an old woman who had shown him nothing but kindness and love. He had destroyed her life. He had destroyed her family. And he had done it deliberately with calculated cruelty. During his trial, Schlichter's lawyers introduced a new defense. They said he had chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, from the concussions he suffered as a quarterback. They said he had suffered at least 15 concussions. They said the repeated head trauma had permanently damaged his frontal lobes. They said this damage had impaired his executive function, his impulse control, his judgment. They said he was neurologically incapable of resisting the urge to gamble. Schlichter agreed to donate his brain to Boston University's CTE Center when he died so they could study the damage. This diagnosis led to a legal battle over his concussion settlement. Schlichter was eligible for nearly $700,000 from the NFL's concussion lawsuit. But the prosecutor in Franklin County, Ron O'Brien, argued successfully that this money should not go to Schlichter. It should go to his victims. Specifically, it should go to the friends of Anita Barney, who she had defrauded while under his coercion. The court agreed. The money that came from the league Schlichter had betrayed was redirected to pay back the people he had destroyed. It was poetic justice. Schlichter was paroled on June 14, 2021. There was no media tour this time. There was no book deal waiting. There was no family support structure. He drifted immediately into the margins of society. For a year, he managed to stay somewhat out of the news. But by June 2022, he was found unresponsive in a hotel room in Hilliard, Ohio. He had overdosed on cocaine. He was revived with Narcan, a drug used to reverse opioid overdoses. It was a stark sign that his addiction had evolved. He was no longer just a gambler. He was an addict chasing harder drugs, chasing the next high, chasing escape from the reality of what he had become. His existence became increasingly invisible. He was homeless. He was living on the streets of Columbus. He was lost in the city that once celebrated him. No one recognized him. No one helped him. He was a ghost haunting Columbus, unseen and unwanted. On February 2nd, 2024, an Ohio Highway Patrol officer was driving through the North Linden neighborhood when he spotted a disabled vehicle on the street. He pulled over to check on it. Standing beside the car was a man who looked like he had not eaten in weeks. The officer asked for identification. The man gave his name, Art Schlichter. The officer did not believe him at first, but it was true. It was really him. During the officer's investigation, he saw glass pipes on the floorboard of the car. Schlichter was asked about them. He handed over small white rocks and admitted they were crack rocks. He was arrested for possession of cocaine, a fifth-degree felony. The man who had once been a first-round draft pick, the man who had been the golden boy of Columbus, was arrested for carrying crack cocaine in a disabled car in a poor neighborhood of the city he once ruled. On August 25, 2025, Schlichter pleaded guilty to the drug charges. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation with mandatory weekly drug testing. Court records described him as frail. He was battling significant health issues. He was physically eroding after decades of addiction and imprisonment. His body was giving out. His mind had been broken long ago. From the Rose Bowl to a broken car in North Linden. From the golden boy of Columbus to a homeless man with crack pipes and addiction, Art Schlichter had every chance to change his life. He had more opportunities for redemption than almost anyone. He was brought back by the NFL. He was embraced by the Arena League. He was supported by wealthy people who believed in him. He had people who loved him. But every single chance was wasted. Every single opportunity was squandered. Because the addiction was stronger than love. The addiction was stronger than family. The addiction was stronger than second chances. The addiction was stronger than his own will to survive. His story is not a story of redemption. It is a story of complete destruction. It is a story of how one person can hurt so many others while hurting himself. It is a story of a broken brain, a broken heart, and a broken life. It is a story of what happens when no one can stop you and you cannot stop yourself. Art Schlichter had everything, and he destroyed it all. He is a warning. He is a cautionary tale. He is the price that addiction demands. And from the streets of Columbus, he remains a lonely ghost, a living monument to the longest odds of all, the odds of recovery when you keep choosing to lose.